start by showing you two films. These are high-speed videos of flies. Okay, this is a fly that you've seen literally every day. They might be around here. This is called the housefly, or the Musca domestica. And I'm just a few quick facts about this fly, which I want you to sort of hold on to for a little bit. First, they flap their wings at 200 to 250 times a second. Okay, now just think about this. So each wing stroke is about 4 milliseconds, or 5 milliseconds. And do you know how long it takes? What is the fastest thing we do? Or one of the fastest things we do? Blink, yeah, blink. How long do you think a blink takes? Couple of seconds too long. Blink faster than that. It's more like 200 milliseconds. Okay, so by the time you blink your eye, the fly has flapped its wings 20 or 25 times, or 50 times, if it's 200 milliseconds. That's how fast these things are. Now, to study them, obviously, your standard camera is not going to help you, because you know how fast, what the frame rate is of a standard camera? It's 25 frames per second. So each frame, between two frames, you have 40 milliseconds. That's still too slow, right? So you require special cameras to observe behavior like this. And when you do that, so this thing is filming at 3,000 frames per second. Okay, and that camera itself is operated at that, but it can go up to a few lakh frames if needed. When you do that, you start seeing things that you wouldn't otherwise. And one of the interesting things about us, we are kind of stuck in the time scales that we are stuck in. The 25 frames per second, or the 20 frames per second at which our standard movies move, is not a coincidence. It just happens to be the rate at which we process sensory information, right? And we are stuck in that. Things that don't happen in those time scales are invisible to us. Wings of the fly are invisible, they are blurred. On the other end of the spectrum, a tree growing is invisible to us. At any given time, it looks static, we don't even observe it. However, if you take this and you now film it at very high frame rates, but then replay it at our frame rates, or if you take time-lapse images of a tree growing, and then to play it fast at our frame rate, then we begin to see. These things which are invisible to us in our life, then suddenly become visible to us. It is like a microscope. You're looking at a microscope in time. Okay. So let's just see this film, and I want you to see. All this fly is doing something you've seen a million times, I'm sure. All it is going to do is land, okay, on this object. So here it comes. Notice how many interesting things it's doing with its wings. It's raised its legs, now gently lands on this. This entire action happened in about 15 or 20 wing strokes. It's about 40 milliseconds. Really, one frame of a standard camera. Let's see it again. And just notice how many different things are going on as this fly lands on the ceiling. Now the question you have to ask yourself when you see something like this is, how does the fly do it? How is it sensing things so fast? We can't sense things this fast. How is it sensing things? Not only is it sensing things fast, but in fact it's reacting to things that fast. So within fractions of wings, fractions of a few wing strokes, it is getting this information, processing it, and deciding what its next wing stroke should be, right? In fact, this is extremely complex. In fact, and to sort of drive that point, I'm going to show you something that is even more sophisticated than what I just showed. Still landing, but Watch this fly. Watch what it does. Okay, this is the sort of thing that an engineer looks at and marvels. How can you reproduce something like this? Towards the end of my talk, I'll show you what our state of art is on getting just insects to that. So let us think about it. What does it take for a fly to be able to carry out something like this? I'll play this movie again. I mean, the word control comes to mind. Okay, how do you control your flight? So for any kind of control, what you need is feedback. You need sensory feedback. If I was to get up and walk there, I would need to stabilize myself. Right? If my inner ear system weren't working properly, I would just have a vertigo and fall. Right? If I close my eyes, the task becomes very difficult. And so when I sort of get up and walk towards the door, I'm using multiple sensory modalities. I'm using my inner ear system just to stabilize myself, and they are actually acting on my postural muscles, on my higher level centers that decide what the movement should be. For instance, there's a wire there, I have to step over it, etc., etc. And of course, visual feedback is also important. Now, the brain takes in these two modalities and integrates them somehow, makes sense of it all. Now, this is an incredibly difficult task for us, even though we are so slow. It's so hopelessly slow as compared to it. Imagine that insects have to do this within few wing strokes, within 5 to 10 milliseconds. They have to get visual input, they have to get mechanosensory input, they have to have a brain that integrates this. Okay? So the nervous system is really driven to its limits in being able to do this. And all of this has to happen such that the fly now is not, we are walking on a surface. Flies are flying in 3 dimensions. Right? So they have to do this in 3 dimensions. Okay? And everything has to be speeded up. So if anyone tells you that flies are lower creatures, I think you should question that idea. Not only are they not lower creatures, they are doing things that we can hardly even dream of. And they're doing this in time scales that, to us are inconceivable. Not just as engineers, but even in general terms, in terms of our imagination. And so these are the sorts of questions that one asks when you see something simple as a fly landing on a ceiling or a fly landing on a surface. And it is exactly these kinds of capabilities that have made insects by far, by orders of magnitude, more successful than any other creature. What you have here is sort of a pie chart, and what it tells you is the relative distributions of things. Not everything is highlighted, so this is not highlighted, that is not highlighted, that is not highlighted. But a lot of things are, and maybe you may not be able to read them, but I'll help you off with it. What you need to know is that scientists estimate that there may be between 6 to 10 million species on it. More than 1 million have already been described. Okay? It is estimated that more than 80% of everything is insects. Flying insects range in size scales, and I'll elaborate on this a little bit, but 3 orders of magnitude. Okay? They go from sub-millimeter scales to the scales of a few feet. Okay? So we're talking about tens of centimeters. And if you actually look at this, so half of these are insects, and many of you may be aware that a large fraction of insects are actually beetles. So all of these are beetles, weasels, longhorn beetles, other beetles, grove beetles, scarabs, stag beetles, these are all beetles. Okay. A large chunk of insects are beetles. And they are called hyperdiverse. They have just tremendous diversity. Then there are other hyperdiversities, and those are the ones that are highlighted. They are the Lepidoptera. Lepidoptera are so called because they have scaly wings. If you ever caught a butterfly or a moth, then they leave some residue, and that's because there are scales on their wings, and that's what gives them the name. So butterflies, moths moths are what we work with. We work with flies as well. In fact, most of what I'm going to tell you about today is flies. Then there are flies. Flies, mosquitoes, they're all of the kind that have one pair of wings rather than two pairs of wings. And in flies, as you'll see in a little bit, the hind pair of wings have evolved into these exquisite sensory structures, which are called corteae. And I'll just show you what these corteae look like and how they work. And then there are wasps, bees, and ants, so-called Hymenoptera, which are also hyperdiverse. So these are single taxa that by themselves have been extraordinarily successful. Okay. Next to arthropods, the most successful taxon would be the mollusks, snakes, and octopi, and so on, squids, and so on. We are, a very small fraction of this so-called deuterostomes. Okay, this little part here, one small fraction of the vertebrates. So we, in the scale of things, are really very recent and very minuscule. Much of life is all these other things. I talked about sizes. So, any questions? Please feel free to interrupt. The largest insect ever found is this meganeurid dragonfly. Okay, because this is a fossil of this. This was around during the so-called Carboniferous. This is a period when a lot of the coal deposits got laid down. There was a lot of diversity, and there were oxygen peaks. There was as much as 25% oxygen in the air. These could spontaneously combust. But that's also around the time you see these really large dragonflies. Okay. How large? Their wingspan, this is the distance between the tip of the two wings, was about 2 feet, 65 centimeters. Okay. Something like that. And that was about 300 million years ago. Okay, so that's, so far as we know, the largest insect that ever lived. This is extinct, huh? Of the largest insect that you find today is this Queen Alexandra's birdwing, which is about 1 foot, okay, 30 centimeters from wing tip to wing tip. We have a birdwing in India called the southern birdwing, which you find in the Western Ghats, Kerala. How many of you have seen this? It's a spectacular animal, absolutely spectacular animal. We were at a cafe once, and a birdwing came and started feeding on some flowers, and a few people started and got a bit there. It's pretty large, but a spectacularly beautiful animal. And this one is slightly bigger than that. Yeah? At the other end of the spectrum, okay, is this, yeah.
I also thought that the Atlas moth was increasing.
This is larger than the Atlas moth. Yeah. But Atlas moths are also of a similar size. Yeah.
Because we haven't really measured the Atlas moths diversity. The one you see up in the Western Ghats, some of them are not little. When you see the Atlas moth, you can take it for granted.
Right.
You start measuring their wing tip to wing tip span. I think some of them probably
would be on the order of 30. No, I won't be surprised. I think southern birdwing is not very far from.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be.
Atlas, because nobody really looking at Atlas moths when they say that it's larger than the Indian.
In fact, at the other end of the spectrum is this absolutely stunning insect. It's called the Megapragma, which is, this bar is 200 microns, okay, 0.2 millimeters. So this is, the wingspan of this is about twice of that, 400 microns. Okay. And this, just for scale, is a single paramecium cell. Okay. So you have insects that are of, now, admittedly this is a large cell, not all cells are of this size, but this is a single cell. And that's an insect.
How were insects like this discovered?
So how was it discovered? Well, you get them on traps. So what they do is they have these, traps that you lay out, and you see what's in there, and then sort of look at it under a microscope, and you find them. One of the smallest insects in the world is something called Kikiki huna. That's a very nice name. There's a pollination tinge to it. It's found in India. It was reported just a few years ago, and it's even smaller than this one, in the order of 100 microns. Okay, now this is stunning. Okay, you have a full insect. It's got antennae, it's got eyes, it's got nice 3 legs. In fact, if I blew this up, you would not recognize it as being very different from the insects that you see, save for the wings, which are kind of feathery. And they're at the scales that they operate. Wings are like, the feathers are like paddles. It's a little bit like if you were to move your finger through a thick jar of honey or a thick tank of honey. Then if your fingers were somewhat close, they would act as a paddle. Okay? There would be no flow through. And that's sort of what is happening here. And a large number of insects, many more than we actually know. Like I said, it's about 1 million insects have been described. And this estimated something like 6 to 10 million. And 6 to 10 million. So we are nowhere close to actually knowing what's out there. Just in way of a preamble to tell you what makes insects so important, so central to all life, and so exciting to work on as a topic in science. So what I'm going to do is divide my talk into 3 parts. The first is physics of life, just what I started with, old stuff, but something that actually is important to know. The second is physiology of life. What is essentially what, if an insect were a machine, then how is it constructed? Yeah. And what are the various parts? And finally, I will talk about why we should care. So, at the heart of it, this whole idea of the bumblebee paradox, okay, the idea that insects should not be able to fly, was something that intrigued people now for nearly 100 years. And they asked, why is it that we are not able to resolve this? Remember that the first powered flights were already around 1905 or so, was the Wright brothers. And what the Wright brothers really achieved was not so much being able to fly, that happened before, but being able to fly in a controlled way. It was control that the Wright brothers really gave the world. And then the progress was rapid. And by the mid-10s or mid-20s, we had, aircrafts being used in wars and things like that. Okay, this were pretty sophisticated. And things have only gotten more and more sophisticated since. And yet, we found ourselves in this ridiculous situation where we couldn't explain how insects flew until very recently. And a large part of that is because we did not have the technology to see what the wings were doing. Okay. And absent that, there were certain theoretical constructs used that didn't quite work, and I'll explain that. So, at the heart of it, what an insect does is very simple. Okay? Or what any, what we call an airfoil does, is very simple, including fans. What it does is it cuts through the air, okay? And it diverts the direction of the air. So, it intercepts the air coming in and pushes it down. Okay? And because it is changing the direction, it is accelerating the air. And because it's doing that, it's going to get a reaction force. Because this is a flat plate, okay, moving through relatively invasive fluid air, the force on it is normal to the plate. Okay? The force acts perpendicular to it. One part of that is what we call lift. That's what gives you the offset of weight. And the other part is called drag, which is just what you have to deal with. And it's a drag on the energy, but one just has to deal with it. It's a component which you do. That's all flight is. That's what an aircraft does, that's what insect wings do, that's what fans do. You know, that's basically what. We didn't know how insects flew. We didn't know what they were doing with their wings. And so what early scientists did was approximate insect wing movement to something called an actuated disc. An actuated disc is simply a disc that produces periodic pressure pulses. Okay? And by virtue of creating these pressure pulses, it gets lifted. Okay? While it's pushing air down. And then what it does, how that air goes down in the wake, etc., can be calculated. Okay. Using physics. I won't go into that. You can then measure what the velocity is here and infer what the velocity is there. Okay. You can do things like that. Now, what happens when we use techniques like this is you're averaging over the entire stroke. So the wing is moving, okay? And you're not really keeping track of what it is doing at every instant of time, right? You're just averaging over the whole. And so the weights kind of mix the flows of both wings, mix the flows over time, and so what the picture that you get is not a fine picture, but a close one. You with me? And so early analysis of wings used models like this. And they did a pretty good job with whatever raw material they had. But as things got a little better, strobes were invented, so you could give these very quick pulses of light. And then you could see the wing. I'm sure you've seen disco lights, and you can see these snapshots of people in various movements, and you can draw a picture. Now, if the person were to do the exact same thing over and over again, then what you would get is the whole reconstruction of the movement. Because you would, picture the person doing this, then this, then this, then this, then this, and then you would get that. And that's sort of what they did with insects. So those kind of analysis allowed them to reconstruct to some degree how the wings move. And what we learn from that is that, first of all, insect wing movement isn't up and down, it's back and forth. Okay. There are exceptions, butterflies move up and down, but by and large, insects that hover, moths, beetles, flies, anything that flaps continuously is mostly doing back and forth motion. There are exceptions. For instance, hoverflies flap up and down, and their bodies are parallel. But those are exceptions. This is a typical picture. You have this silhouette of the insect in the back. The wing moves at an angle, and then moves back, and then moves at an angle and moves back. So on both strokes, it is sorry.
Like a humming. Like a hummingbird.
Like a hummingbird. Exactly like a hummingbird. In fact, that's exactly what a hummingbird beak stroke looks like. Yeah? And that's typical of what you see when you see anything out. So these are the snapshots. Okay, now what you can do is take a snapshot, take a wing of the same size or a scale size, put it in a wind tunnel, put a force sensor, and then measure the lift. And say now the wing were in that position, okay, then this is the force that it would experience. And then you can reconstruct the trajectory of the wing and the force trajectory. Force as a series, as a time series. And so that's what people did. And what they did was use then these kind of methods to understand how much force is being generated. And that's described in this graph. It's a very simple graph. There is the lift coefficient and the drag coefficient. These are just two things that enter the equation. Forces are typically proportional, but typically they are always proportional to the square of the velocity of the wing. Okay. To the area, the projected area of the wing, and the density. R is the density.
Density, like
of the medium of air. Right. So if it's denser, then you're going to generate more force. And then there is this factor that goes in there which allows you to adjust what the wing is. And that factor depends on the geometry of the wing, etc. The shape of the wing, etc. Now if you plug those in, so you measure the lift and you divide by all of these, then you get this. And this then is a factor that is scale free, meaning if you get those conditions right, then you would get the same values no matter how big the wing is, okay, or small the wing is. This really helps you because you can then experiment with larger things. You don't have to experiment with tiny things. So let's look at what's going on. If the wing is moving at zero angle of attack, this is the angle of attack is the angle that you make with the oncoming airflow. What's going to happen? Will you generate force? No. So you have zero. Okay? Now you start to increase, say 10 degrees. Now will you generate force? Some, small, right? So you increase. And if you then keep on doing this, up until the time you're at 45 degrees, okay, lift continues to increase. Now if you go beyond 45 degrees, remember that that component is going to start coming down because more and more force is tilted away from the vertical. And so beyond 45, the lift starts to come down. This is very intuitive. Drag, on the other hand, continues to increase. The more broadside you're moving the wing relative to the fluid, the more drag you're going to experience. And so drag continues to increase. Between 0 and 1, just remember the drag. So what we did, the criticism we raised against this was that this method was fine except it kept the wings at a constant altitude from base to tip. Whereas a flapping wing doesn't quite do this. A flapping wing is moving, but this is slow, that is fast. So there's a gradient of velocity, and you have to incorporate that. Otherwise, you're not going to be making the calculations in the correct way. And I'm glossing over a lot. People. It's not as if people hadn't thought about it. It's just that they were developing methods to do this, something called finite element analysis. Yeah.
Aren't these made with the assumption that the width of the wing is negligible, which is counter to the
Width meaning thickness of the wing?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is actually not a very bad assumption. And a wing is what we describe as a flat plate. Okay. Unlike an airfoil cross section, which is not a flat plate. It has this, it is thicker on the tip and then thins down. And that's the fundamental difference between wings but that's not a terribly bad assumption. It works quite all right. And we know that because when we measure the net force, right, we know that the net force is normal to the flat plate. And that means that we must be right in that assumption.
So you're saying that the thickness is uniform, assuming that thickness is uniform. So
Not so much thickness is uniform as it is very thin. It's not much. It is corrugated a little bit. It doesn't matter too much. Because for all intents and purposes, the wing acts like a flat plate. Okay. So good question. Right. So this is what we knew, and these were the values that were getting plugged in to these quasi-steady models. This idea that the wings are, at some constant state when they're moving. And they were coming up short, right? So that was the paradox. So what we did, and we were not the only ones doing this, there was another person whose picture you'll see in a little bit. We were starting to develop methods in which we used flappers. They're not quite robots, they're just flappers, they're just things that allow you to move the wing. And so this was the wing. This was about 25 centimeters in size, so we had dynamically scaled them, meaning we had made sure that all the relative parameters were exactly like those in an insect. At the base of this was a sensor, a two-dimensional sensor. Okay. And that one measured the force normal to the wing, and that one measured the force parallel to the wing. Okay. And so from the record of these two sensors, we could reconstruct the direction in which the force vector acted. The key part in this was this transmission, which is sort of like a car transmission. The three axes of rotation meet at one point. Okay, it's just like a car transmission. And so what that allows you to do is move the wings in any which way you want. So if you knew exactly how an insect wing moved, you could program this device, which got called RoboFly, not by us, by others. And we could then measure the forces on the wing, and we could give the wing any kinematic pattern we wanted. And how were these kinematic patterns got? Well, as the technology got better, we were able to actually now film insects in 3 dimensions. This is a much later film. The one that we used for our first project was the single 3-dimensional kinematic pattern we have from a German study. But I'm just showing this to give you a sense of how these kind of measurements are made. So here's an insect doing exactly what it was doing in the first film, which is landing. And what you can do is digitize the wing margin. Okay, and this is using 2 views, so you get a complete 3D picture. And the plots you see here are the 3 angles, the so-called Euler angles. So how the wing is in this direction, and the angle of attack on both wings. Okay, so each of those, let me play that again. Each of these is 2 plots. They are riding right on top of each other because insects are so perfectly coordinated in their wing movement. It's only towards the end that you will see those lines separate when the insect begins to land. And these are the body parameters. How the insect's body is: pitch, roll, and yaw. So you guys know what pitch, roll, and yaw is? Okay, I'll just explain. So if this is the body, this direction is pitch. Okay, this direction is yaw, and that is roll. Okay, so you can get everything, is what I'm trying to say. And then you can play it through this. And because we wanted to keep all those parameters same as those of insects, insects actually sense their environment to be much more viscous than we do because they're smaller. And so we had to dump all of this in a large tank of oil. This is 1 ton mineral oil. 2 wings, the 3 motors that drove each wing. And this is the maiden event of its flapping, which I filmed. And you can see what this looks like. There's the sensor right there, that's the wing. The wing is about 25 centimeters in size, and what you can do is reconstruct. You can see the oil with bubbles, air bubbles, so you can actually see what's going on. Okay? So you can sort of see the vortices as they form, right? So now you have complete information. You have forces and you have flows. That is the whole information. That should answer your question completely. This is the latest version of it. What I showed you was now this year 20 years old. But this one is ran more like 5-6 years old. And this is what RoboFly looks like now. It's in the lab of Shinyan Deng, my collaborator at Purdue University. You can see those oil bubbles. Now those flashes that you saw, okay, are pulsed lasers. So I told you that you can see flow. It doesn't help you to just see flow, right? You have to quantify. And the way we quantify flow is using a method that's called digital particle image velocimetry. So what you do is you have, this is the overhead view of the tank, the wing. You make laser sheets across, like a wall of laser, 2-dimensional wall of laser. And you see a configuration of bubbles in there. And then the wing moves and the bubbles move, and you take quick pictures. And you ask how much have the bubbles moved and in what direction. Okay? And you reconstruct that picture, which sort of looks like this. Now, what you can't see is that each point here is an arrow. And that arrow points in a particular direction. And this is the cross section of the wing, and I think you can already see that there's a vortex right there. Right? There is some flow coming in this way. And it's high because it's very rare. Yeah? So, this is the velocity field. Okay? And what you can do is perform some calculus with this to get something called a vorticity field. It's an operation called the curl. The curl of the velocity gives you vorticity. Okay? And then you can see very clearly the vortices. Don't worry about the actual techniques. It's just, these are just simple ways of doing this. And so you get the complete picture. You have both information about flows and both information about forces. And we then started to analyze the force record and the flow record. And what we found was something quite surprising. So this is how, when a wing starts from rest and moves, okay, now this is flapping. Remember, it's not moving in one direction, it's flapping. You see initial force transients, that will happen because the wing is accelerating. But then the force falls into a very steady pattern. Okay, it doesn't change. It falls into a steady pattern. That was really surprising because this is not what happens to aircraft wings when they fly, when they go at very high angles of attack.
So you say the wings are just gliding?
No. So if you see an aircraft wing, it is almost at this angle. It's not at this. If it were at this, it would stop. The plane would actually go out of control. Okay, because what happens in that case is that the forces fluctuate a lot. You will see in a little bit why. Whereas in the case of flapping wings, somehow that doesn't happen. You can maintain a pretty steady vector. Okay, as long as the wing just keeps moving, even at very high angles. And that was a shock. Okay. In the past, what you saw ranged between 0 and 1. Okay. And now what we saw ranged between 0 and 1.5 to almost 2. And the drag was several times higher. 3 to 4 times higher. Okay, so what this meant at the very least was that that we had been throughout underestimating forces. forces were actually much higher. And once you took these values and plugged them in, you were able to solve the bumblebee paradox. Okay, it wasn't, the theoretical structure was already there. All one needed to do was fix those coefficients, okay, which needed to be measured. Now you might ask, what is different about a flapping wing as compared to a fixed wing? Why is it that fixed wings can't go at this high angle of attack that flapping wings can? What is it that stabilizes the flow and gives you a steady force control? And that answer came from Charlie Ellington, who's a professor at Cambridge, now retired, but an extraordinary person, sort of set up the field. And this was, I think, the grand kind of finale of his career, was to show that what stabilized the flow was a steady outward jet, okay, along the front margin of the wing. It was called, you had the leading edge vortex, which is also something that he described, and which I showed just a little while ago. And the fact that the leading edge vortex was kept small and stable, okay, by this outward jet that was going from base to tip. And that was just because there was a gradient of velocity from base to tip. Yeah? Is that, are you with me? So here's the difference in a nutshell. In the case of flapping wing, what happens is that the wing moves, the leading edge vortex develops, and it begins, it's constantly being fed in, and so it eventually becomes large in size and then sheds. Okay, so it sheds, and when it sheds, the force drops, and then again it builds up, and the force rises, and again it drops, and that's what causes the stall. In the case of a flapping wing, on the other hand, it never sheds. It stays there and it stays smaller than the fixed wing counterpart, but more stable because of that outward flow, so-called axial flow. I mean, yeah?
So, when the wing is moving forward, then only the forces are steady, or it is steady when it is coming back also?
So, the wing moves this way and then this way.
When it is moving back.
At the transients, vortices are shed. But then they are built up. So on each stroke, you are generating a new leading edge vortex, and that is kept stable.
But the angle of attack is very opposite in the back.
No, it's the same. It's just, I mean, you have to look relative to how it's moving. Yeah. So this, in a nutshell, is why insects are able to generate forces that are sufficient to fly. So this is just a quick picture. You can see the arrows more clearly here. In the middle of the stroke, you will see that the vortex stays pretty much small and stable. Right? Sorry, it's a bit irritating. Okay, and so if you now put this in quantitative terms, previously these are the sorts of values that were being used in aerodynamic models. When we measured this with the RoboFly, these are the revised values. These values more or less resolve the issue of how insects fly. We discovered many other mechanisms, but I won't go into that. Some mechanisms relate to what happens when a wing flips at the end. That's something unique to insects. Propellers just move around and around, whereas insects have this reverse force. And then every time the wing actually reverses stroke, it is banging into the fluid that it just pulled with it. And that caused another accelerated peak. So these peaks that you see here arise from rotation of the wing, and then this from something that they call, or we call a weight capture, and then later revives the wing weight interaction. Okay. So that's so far as the aerodynamics goes, and I see that we've consumed a fair bit of time, but I'm still only halfway there. But if there are no questions, I'll just move on. Yeah.
Sorry, but in the graph which showed the coefficient of drag and time, why did the drag reduce first and then it becomes
Those are transients. Okay.
yeah.
This one, yeah. So those are transients, meaning that they are accelerated forces that happen when the wing starts from rest. We ignore them because the picture that we are looking for is a steady one. When the wing is when the flow is stabilized.
So because it accelerates, that's why it reduces the.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, so around this time I finished my PhD, and I worked in a lab where everybody else worked on real instruments, and I was working on this robot, and I was constantly envious of them because they were doing such cool things. And so I got more and more interested in studying behavior and the nervous system. And so in my career after that, I have more or less focused on that. I want to show you just a couple of films to give you a sense of just how sophisticated some of what we're seeing is. Now, what you're going to see here is a chase between so the same house that you see around canteens and so on are actually extremely dynamic creatures. They are keeping track of their work, they are guarding territories, and they chase females, just like all of us. And what they're doing is actually going after. Now, this is males guarding territories. Okay. And watch this. This male is an interloper, and there is another male that's chasing it. This is all happening in 3D, by the way. Okay. And it's all happening extremely fast. Okay. Now there it's intercepted. It is then slammed to the ground. Okay. Now here is how a male treats another male as a potential competitor. Okay. These are extraordinary things going on. On the other hand, if the male catches a female, he's much gentler. And this is what we see. It's the same house class, right? He carries her, she does nothing at all, she's not even moving her wings. So he's carrying the weight of 2 insects there. Watch how much the wings are moving. He deposits her gently on an object there, and then takes off. So this is an extraordinary feat. I'm telling you about the aerodynamics, which is such a small component of this absolutely wonderful creature. There is a brain, it's thinking, it's making decisions, it recognizes males from females, it behaves differently, it's living a life as we live our lives. And that's something that I really want to emphasize, is that insects are not just there helping us pollinate our flowers and being pests and eating our crops and so on. They are living, okay, and they are surviving, and they've been there longer than us, and they'll probably, I hope, be there long after us. Although we'll come to that towards the end. So I got really interested in the physiology of life. Now there's way too much to tell you. I cannot possibly do it justice. So I'm just going to show you some very interesting movies about what the insides of an insect look like. And the way we are doing this is using a technique that we have now in our institute as well called micro-CT. It's like a CT scan, except you can do it in small things, and it's an X-ray tomography. This is another case of insects making decisions. This is a fly, a Drosophila, a small fruit fly. We've given it 4 objects. It's just to give you a sense of the kind of experiments we do. One of this is an odor source. The other 3 are just dummy objects. And the fly's job is to find the right object and look at all the different decisions it's making. Mind you, this is happening very fast. Okay? So it goes out, says no, that's not where the odor source is, turns around, Look at all the absolutely wonderful wing movements. This is something I only appreciated after I studied the physics. Because I know how much wing movements matter. There it makes a turn. Aha, that's the odor source. And lands on it. Okay. So we do these kind of experiments. Now, that fly, or a fly like it, okay, is what I'm going to show you in this one.
Backward flight is not possible.
Backward fly? A little bit, not too much. But that's a good question. They can fly a little bit.
You see dragonfly.
Dragonflies also don't fly backwards all that much, but a little bit they can fly. So for instance, when they take off, they move back and then they go forward. So, a little bit. So, this is the head of an insect. Okay, this is the thorax, and then there's of course the abdomen, which has been cut out here. There's the wing. Okay. What you're going to see now are the insides of this fly. You will see muscles that go like this and like this. So those are the muscles that power flight. There are smaller set of muscles which we will look at later. That are right here. There is an extraordinarily complex and absolutely wonderful wing hinge, which also I will try to shed some light on. There is a nervous system that goes like this. Okay, it's ventrally located. There's the brain is here, and then the nervous system is kind of there. There's a heart that goes through here. There is an intestine that goes through there. It's all in there. Okay. Although it will kind of flash out. Where is the insect? Let's see the eyes, the antennae. You can see the back side. That's the part of the thorax. On the scutellum. Now we're going to go inside the wing. Follow the insect. There are the flight muscles right there. You can see them. They're very complex organization. The muscles that are like this bring their wings down. The muscles that are like this are antagonistic. They bring the wings up. Like elevator and flight depressor muscles. Then there are the muscles that drive the hinge. If you look closely, somewhere there you will see the heart, the nervous system, etc. You just go by it. Leg muscles. Yeah. Out it comes. So when you take an insect and open it up, it's a mess in there. It's not a mess, it's actually very well organized. But it's far more complicated than what you would see if you were to open up, you can see the gut. If you were to open up a car and look inside. There is the hortea, okay, which is the hind wing that is converted into this interesting structure. Okay, now that's the hortea. Okay, the hortea very quickly is a gyroscope. You know what a gyroscope is? Yeah. Okay, I mean there's a way everyone knows what a top is, right? So, do you know why a top persists? Because of the conservation of angular momentum, right? So, conservation of angular momentum means that if something is rotating, it will try to maintain its plane of rotation until an external torque tries to stop it or change it, right? And so when the torque begins to fall, it tries to maintain its plane of rotation and it recesses, like so. And that's why the torque recesses, right? A gyroscope is something very similar. Except in the case of flies, this is the hind wing, which is sort of right here. This is a soldier fly. You'll see this in a little bit. At the base of this gyroscope, so what the gyroscope does is steer the fly every time it turns in midair. Okay. And it informs the nervous system. How does it inform it? It uses, there are embedded in the gyroscope, in the haltear, these mechanosensors, things that are responding to the strain patterns. Okay?
Stable or
That's right. So there are strain patterns because it's trying to maintain its plane of rotation. There's a force pushing it back and forth, and that is translated into stretching of the cuticle. And that is encoded by all of these sensory structures. Okay, and that information is communicated to the nervous system, which then makes sense of it and says, okay, I'm yawing at so many radians per second. I need to correct myself. So when a fly flies, so this is takeoff in a soldier fly. Yeah, watch this. You see this structure? It's moving anti-phase to the wings. Wings go up, it goes down. That's the heart rate. And all this is happening at extraordinarily rapid rates. This is the same that's happening in soldier flies fly at 100 hertz, which by our measure is slow. The musca at 200, 250 hertz, the Drosophila at 200, 250 hertz, mosquitoes go up to 700 times a second. And yet, the wing and haltear motion are very precisely coordinated. So, a natural question to ask is, how can the fly do this? Right? How is it possible for a fly to be able to coordinate things to that degree? The nervous system can't work that fast, it's just too fast for the nervous system. A single action potential is about 2 milliseconds. Okay? And so, for something to be coordinated at that rapidly, remember that it has to get sensory information, process it, and then do this. So we started to scratch our heads about what's going on. So haltears detect these gyroscopic forces and they communicate that information to the wing muscles. And so the wing muscles will perform this corrective motion. The wings themselves have to move exactly in synchrony. If the wings move slightly out of synchrony, they will just flow. Okay? How important all the haltears? Let me just show you some films. So this is a normal insect as it flies. Okay, it's taking off, as you can see. It's very stable. Track its body. It's not moving wide. It's very stable. Okay, this is an insect in full control of its flight. You knock out the haltears. Okay, cut the haltears, and this is what happens. This is with both haltears are very. This is an insect that's not in control of its flight because it's not getting sensory information about its turns. It's a little bit like us having inner ear problems. So we will get vertigo, that's what is happening to this insect. If you cut just one haltear, let's say just the left one, then as you can see the insect grows in a particular direction. Okay, we're still studying why that is the case. We don't fully understand this. And in fact, you know if all insects work this way. And if we cut the other one, then it grows in the other direction. This was stable for a bit. The moment it turned out of back. And there you go. Yeah? Wing movements and haltear movements are in perfect synchrony. Okay, these haltears are exactly out of phase and wings are exactly in phase. The question is how? We had two hypotheses. One is that this must be neurally coordinated, but like I said, this is happening way too fast for the nervous system. The other hypothesis is that they are mechanically coupled. This was an easier one to guess because you need dead insects for this. Right? So we had dead insects And what we did is, and when I say we, this is my student Tanvi Devra. What she did was she placed the soldier flag, the freshly dead soldier flag, not got into rigor mortis yet, and she moves the wing. Okay, now the nervous system isn't operated, but yet you see that the wings, when you move one wing, the other wing moves, and then the heart will move. And what that told us was that for the coordination of the wings and the heart the nervous system didn't matter. There must be something else. And what followed was a series of experiments. Now let me just quickly tell you what this is: the thorax of the wing. This is a part called the scutellum. This is sputum. The scutellum throws its arms right under the wing hinge. And what we are trying to find out now is how are all these things linked? We know that moving one wing causes another wing to move, but something must be connecting it. So I'm just going to show you a movie that summarizes all her experiments. Okay, please give me a
biomechanics of wing and vertical coordination.
Let me play this again.
This movie summarizes the findings on the biomechanics of wing and vertical coordination in flies. Our study shows that precise coordination between wings and vertical is achieved not by the nervous system, but by mechanical connections within the thorax. A structure of the thorax, the scutellum, links the two wings. Rapid coordination of the indirect asynchronous flight muscles drive the motion of the scutellum, which causes simultaneous in-phase movement of both wings. When this link is severed, the two wings become uncoordinated, as shown in the next video. Thus, the scutellar linkage is necessary for wing-wing coordination. Although the two wings are not coordinated anymore, the hortears on each side oscillate antiphase to the ipsilateral wing. When the two wings become uncoordinated, the hortears also become mutually uncoordinated. We next showed that the wing-hortear coordination is mediated by a separate mechanical linkage, the subephemeral ridge, which connects the wing base to the hortear base. When the subephemeral ridge is intact, wings and hortears oscillate exactly antiphase with respect to each other. However, when this link is lesion, wings and hortears become uncoordinated. Notice that the hortear continues to move to its full amplitude, driven by the asynchronous hortear muscles. The hortear on the right side, whose link remains intact as an internal control, continues to oscillate exactly antiphase with the contralateral wing. Thus, the subephemeral linkage between the wing and the hortear system on both sides are independent of each other. If the wings and hortears are constrained to move in synchrony by mechanical linkages, how do insects achieve control of just one wing at a time? To address this question, we propose the hypothesis that there exists a clutch at the base of each wing, which can engage and disengage the wing from the mechanical linkages. When the clutch is engaged on both sides, the two wings clap together. However, when the clutch is disengaged on one side, one wing remains folded, whereas the other can flap. Apart from the clutch, the base of the wing contains a gearbox. Once the wing is engaged, the gearbox controls the amplitude of each wing. If we zoom into the base of the fly wing during active flapping, we can see the wing hinge. It consists of a radial stop shown in red, a plural wing process shown in yellow, and Terraria C, a putative mechanosensor and damper shown in blue. The radial stop contacts through the wing process in 4 different modes, mode 0, 1, 2 and 3 as shown here. In this scanning electron microscope image, we see how the radial stop connects with the plural wing process in 4 different ways from mode 0 to mode 3. Here is a video of the wing engagement at the start of flight as the radial stop moves from mode 0 to high mode. Notice the shift in the wing amplitude from very low to very high within a single wing stroke.
So this is where the wing was before it engaged. Okay, came up to here. Now it engages in the gear, and now you can see that
Once engaged, the wing hinge shifts between the different modes and the wing moves at high amplitudes. This is akin to the gear change operation in automobiles. During flight cessation, the wing abruptly transitions from high amplitude to low amplitude within a wing stroke as seen in this video. When this happens, the radial stop moves from high modes to mode 0.
Okay, so what have we learned? Yeah, go ahead.
Are these modes physically connected to each other, or do they unhinge from one mode and then connect to the other?
So it's a groove structure, sort of like so. You've got grooves, and you have a radial stop that
that's
engages in these grooves. Okay, that's the idea, right? When it's disengaged, it's not resting on this structure at all, and you have effectively a wing that's in 0 K, okay, like a neutral. And then when it engages, the amplitude goes high, and then for the highest amplitude, it again goes beyond this into another slot, but it doesn't rest on anything. That's when the wing moves maximum. So for a fly to achieve these changes in its wing amplitude and thereby affect turns, maneuvers, etc., this is what it seems to be doing. Okay? This is the hypothesis, and this is something that has been in the literature for a while. You're actually beginning to see it. I won't go into how difficult some of these films are to get, because you're using a high-speed camera on a very tiny surface. You need to put a lot of light in there to be able to see it, and often that kind of light will fry the insect. So you have to come up with ways of doing this so that you don't fry the insect, but the light is on only when the camera is exposed. And so there are many tricks that we've been able to use.
For the clutch to engage and disengage, shouldn't the nervous system play a role? Because otherwise, how will the clutch?
That's very good. Yes, indeed. And so, in fact, when the wing engages on both sides, it's the nervous system that is telling it now engage on both sides.
But you told that it's very fast for the nervous system to play.
But engagement and disengagement isn't. You see, when an insect is taking off, it has time to decide now it's going to fly. Okay? And that may take slightly longer. It's the business of coordination, right? That requires to be instantaneous. And for that, the nervous system is just too slow. Right? Even the slightest slop can over time just amplify. And then you have the wing doing sort of like this, and so that requires physics. It's connected by the linkage, and so speed of sound is the limiting factor in that medium, not the nervous system, which is much slower. Yeah.
Sanjay, 12:15. We are ready to wrap up whenever.
So there's a key part that I want to go over. So I'm sorry I'm sort of taking longer, but maybe I'll skip unless you're interested, I can show you the wing hinge and how complex it is. Would you be interested in that? All right.
I guess just the questions hold off till we'll take the questions over tea break. Yeah? I'm sure you guys need a refreshment too.
10 minutes. And then
Okay.
So here's a lateral view of the wing hinge. So that's the radial stop, which you just saw. The plural wing process, the RLC, we don't quite know what it does. Here's the scutellal lever which connects to the two wings. And there are these plates on the skeleton that are being controlled by muscles. So this plate, the first axillary sclera, is being controlled by these two muscles, one and 1, 2. Right? Then there is another part of it. This one has no muscles. Okay, it's axillary sclera 2. This is third axillary sclera, and this one is controlled by many muscles. Okay, so we have these different muscles. So 4 muscles that connect to this through a tendon. This fourth axillary sclera, and these muscles, as it turns out, are also involved in creating song in the sophia. They sing a song to their females, and that's the muscle that's involved in that. There's a basilar sclera, a large muscle that it determines where the wing moves. So while it's flying, it goes forward or backward, and that's the basilar sclera. So those are the sum total of all the muscles. Several pairs, 18, 19 pairs of muscles that are controlling just one wing hinge. Okay. With the whole gear change operation, engagement, disengagement, and so on. And we are now able to see it in really nice detail because of the micro-CT. We can 3D print these and can do it with So that's sort of the wing hinge. And then very quickly, miniaturization. So this is a project that's now going on in the lab. We're looking at sensory structures. Jidol, who is here, a student, is actually looking at these things. We're looking at how the eye scale, the antennae scale, wings, etc. Just to give you a sense of the fact that these two are sophisticated insects. Look at the same insect flying. We're not enabling people to see it's flying usually. And these are all the challenges that insects face when they need to miniaturize. Their antennae are smaller, so they can sample less, so they need to be more sensitive. Eyes have fewer homopedia, so poorer resolution. The wings are reduced and often have fringed margins to reduce weight, but they sometimes enhance their amplitude. Dispersal becomes a problem. How do you go from long distances, yet they are able to actually move a lot? Can you guess how they do it? How do insects like these, tiny ones, go long distances? Wind is one way. Rachit, maybe you have a guess?
Do they travel along another one?
Yes, that's what they do. They hitch rides on other insects. We were in Panama looking at these migrating insects, and we'd catch these insects and butterflies typically. And each of these butterflies have a nice red belly right in the center. I kept wondering, what is this? Turns out it's a mite. Those exactly. How do these mites get there? How do they know exactly to be at the center? I struggled with this question until I met a mite expert from the GKVK, and I said, I've been wondering, how do they know to get exactly at the center? And they said, oh, that's simple. They just climb up the proboscis. They're sitting on the flowers. Where the proboscis ends is where they settle. Anyway, so there are all these things. So just a quick to end this all with where a lot of this goes, not in my lab. I'm interested in the biology. The biology intoxicates me, but not so much the applications. But that is not to say that there isn't application of all this. This is the state of art of an insect landing, except this is a robot. Okay, notice that it is tethered because they can't power it, it's too power consuming, so they don't have a battery good enough. And if you thought insect landing was elegant, tell me how this compares.
RoboBees have been upgraded.
The tiny insect robots are now capable of perching like a bat to save energy. A Harvard team used electrostatic adhesion, the same science that causes a balloon to stick to a wall, to give their microbots a rest during flight. The robot is fitted with an electrode patch and a foam mount that absorbs shock to perch on surfaces. When the patch is supplied with a charge, it can stick to almost any surface, from glass to wood or a leaf. To detach, the power supply is simply switched off. The new perching components weigh 13.4 milligrams, bringing the total weight of the robot to about 100 milligrams, similar to the weight of its biological namesake. It requires 1,000 times less power to perch than it does to hover, which dramatically extends the RoboBee's operational life. The upgrade brings the ultimate goal, swarms of tiny drones for use in military surveillance or search and rescue operations, one step closer to reality.
So this is the state of art. This is as good as we are, and this is actually quite good. You know, there was a time we didn't imagine being able to build anything like an insect, but this group has come quite far. The problem of the battery is still a huge problem. Control, oh my God, we are nowhere close to insects. So, you know, we are quite far. Okay, so here ends the main part of my talk, which was about flight. The thing that I'm really concerned about and worried about of late is what I'm going to talk about, why we should care. What should our relationship with insects be? About late 2017, this article appeared in a journal called PLOS ONE. This was a study carried out in Germany where they were tracking insects. Okay, and they happened to do two such surveys about 27 years apart. And they found, to their shock and horror, and remember, Germany is a country that takes fairly good care of its environment, that they found a 75% decline over 27 years. 75%. Okay? There were people, old-timers, who would say that when we rode on the streets, you know, our car windshields would be splattered with insects, and now we don't see any. I'm sure a lot of us have this experience. That came out in late 2017. You know, when I read it, I was a bit, perturbed. I said, wow, this is happening in Germany, it must be quite bad elsewhere. Sure enough, in late 2018, a year later, another study came out. This was with the proceedings in the National Academy of Sciences, which carried not a similar study, but a study of a similar nature in a protected rainforest area. Okay? And here they showed, and I will read out the abstract of this just in a little bit, that there was dramatic loss of insect diversity. Just earlier this year, two authors from Australia reviewed all the literature. So this is so alarming to see such massive decline in insects, that they put together whatever literature they could find on worldwide decline in entomofauna. And what they found is extraordinarily shocking. They're reporting already a 40% loss in insect fauna across the world. Okay. Now, I just read the abstract. A number of studies indicate that tropical arthropods should be particularly vulnerable to climate warming. If these predictions are realized, climate warming may have a more profound impact on the functioning and diversity of tropical forests than currently anticipated. Although arthropods comprise over 2/3 of terrestrial species, the information on their abundance and extinction rates in tropical habitats is severely limited. Here we analyze data on arthropod and insectivore abundances in the leaf insects between 1976 and 2012 in two mid-elevation habitat in Puerto Rico's Luquillo rainforest. During this time, the mean maximum temperatures have gone up by 2 degrees, and using the same strategic method employed by Lister in 1970s, we discovered that the private biomass of arthropods captured in sweep samples have declined 4 to 8 times and 30 to 60 times in sticky traps. Analysis of long-term data on canopy arthropods and walking sticks, these are insects, taken as part of the LUPIO long-term ecological research program revealed sustained declines in abundance over 2 decades, as well as negative regressions of abundance on mean maximum fertility. We document parallel decreases in LUPIO's insectivorous lizards, frogs, birds, while El Nino and southern oscillation influences the abundance of forest arthropods. Climate warming is a major driver of reductions in arthropod abundance. Indirectly precipitate a bottom-up trophic cascade, meaning a chain reaction and consequent collapse of the food forest food. Extremely alarming. And sure enough, the news media caught up with this. There was an article, a section dedicated, a feature section which called Insect Apocalypse is Here. This is The Guardian, which described, this really hurts me because I've worked with bogong moths. The decline in bogong moth numbers, the massive numbers of bogong moths, these are these migrating moths in Australia. This article is worried about the pygmy possums, but I was worried about the bogong moths, and they're related obviously. There is another one which uses terms like ecological Armageddon after the dramatic plunge. This is happening around us. And what really worries me is that in India, we don't have long-term surveys. Okay, monarch butterflies, you all heard of the spectacular migration, vanishing. They may be extinct in a few years. This study that I just talked about, the review, okay, describes studies that they could find in the literature. And you can see a lot of them are from the US, several from Europe, one from Brazil, another from Panama, South Africa, Australia, and that's it. China, one. India, none. Not one long-term study has been conducted in India, save for one study that we've been carrying out completely by accident. Okay. Now the question is, what's going on? Why is it that we are not carrying out long-term surveys? How will we know if we lose insects? How will we know if things around us just start to collapse? You know, you stop observing sparrows in a city, you say, wow, what's going on? How do you know? That's not because the insects are dying out, and it probably is in carrying out natural history projects. So why is it that of all the labs in India, this happens to be the one lab that is somehow carrying on this long-term project? And I'm just listing a few reasons why this might be the case. Guaranteed long-term funding. I just happen to be lucky to have a source of funding that I can divert to this study. It was not meant for this study, but we felt that this is an important component of what we do, so we've been using those funds. And because that funding continued, we continue to gather data. This is in Agumbe Rainforest Research Station. Undisturbed habitats. This is almost unheard of in India. Where do you get undisturbed habitats anymore? An early start. I was lucky that I started right after I moved to India and started my new job. If I had done this later, I would probably retire long before a 30-year study got completed. You need consortia. One lab cannot do this. We need many labs to get together to do this. Because we're not going to learn much from one site in the Western Ghats. Public awareness is next to live. In my colony, yesterday, they killed bees. There was a large, absolutely wonderful beehive. And yesterday night, when we went out for a walk, there were millions of bees just dead.
Not colony, housing colony, they lived in IIT.
Yeah, this is.
Educational institute.
I cannot understand. The bees are minding their own business. Some person went and complained that they were worried that their kids would get stung. Things are completely out of Anyway, but the point is, this is our relationship with insects. We consider them as pests. We consider them as largely inconvenient things that, threaten us somehow. You need institutional support. Not only is it enough for my lab to know that this is important, my institution needs to know so that they support me. And not just my institution, but my parent institution and their parent institution, all the way to the government. Right? They all need to be supportive of this. Because without that, they will not be on these other things. And dedicated students are the lifeblood of any research program. Unless they do this, there is no hope. And this is just a list of few things that I feel is
also
important.
permissions given. You should first know what is there to know whether you exhaust it or not. So in order to know what is there, you need permissions in protected areas and all to find out the insects are there.
That's right.
You're not given any
You're not
permissions.
given-
In India, they just do not want to give permission to any taxonomical,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a large scale problem. So, a long-term survey on the one hand is essential. Without that, we are not going to be able to do anything or get any sense of what's going on. On the other hand, there is all these factors that are working against